TFO for short. TFO was founded almost on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. We are happy that we have been able to sustain this forum thanks to people like you who log in every Saturday to participate in the discussions. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. We have also held film festivals such as East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, and others. We have also held retrospectives of Kelly Reichardt and Adur Gopal Krishnan. Today, Dr. Manas Ghosh will lead the discussion on Mrinal Sen's CHALCHITRA. Manas is an assistant professor at the Department of Film Studies, Jadavpur University, Kolkata. He teaches contemporary Asian cinema, non-fiction film, and cinematic realism in the global context. His area of research interest includes third cinema, alternative cinema in India, and new cinemas of East Asia. He was awarded the Foreign Sinology Scholar Fellowship by the Center for Chinese Studies, Taipei, Taiwan, in 2017. He publishes regularly in vernacular magazines and English journals on cinema, culture, and literature. Welcome, Manas, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gita. Thank you for inviting me to lead the discussion today's evening. And thank you, Talking Films Group. Thank you very much for inviting me. So let us start. Let me start. CHALCHITRA, the film Mrinal Sen, which is today's topic of discussion. CHALCHITRA is a lesser known Mrinal Sen film, but it is not lesser film, I believe. I chose this film for today's discussion because CHALCHITRA and Ek Din Pratidin, these two films mark Mrinal Sen's transition from 1970s to the 1980s. While Ek Din Pratidin has been discussed by many critics for its strong dramatic elements, I believe, CHALCHITRA is ignored by the film writers for its unaccentuated dramatic content and disparate and episodic narrative structure. Besides this, Mrinal Sen's treatment looks slightly playful in this film. Another reason may be the film did not have theatrical release. Only shown in Venice and London film festivals, the public memory of this film is almost, therefore, absent, non-existent. Now, the digital Creative Commons like YouTube brings back the film to us. The film has got, therefore, a new life through the digital platforms. Now, when we go back to the history of Mrinal Sen cinema, we can look at CHALCHITRA post facto as a transition film. So the transition in Mrinal Sen's style is very important. Actually, Mrinal Sen did not stick to one singular realism. He changed his style to meet the demand of the changing social reality of his contemporary time. He wanted to respond always to the developments taking place around him. The reality of the 1970s provoked him to make direct political films. We know in the that for that, he earned global fame in this decade, 1970s I'm talking about. It would be difficult for any filmmaker to leave the style in which she feels comfortable. But Sen was always committed to the reality in which he was immersed. Therefore, as the society around him had changed, he too changed his style. His 1980s films, Kandahar, Antorin, Genesis, Mahaprithvi, in terms of technique, treatment, and narrative storytelling, look very different from direct cinepolitics of Kolkata 71, Interview, and Padati. his 1980s films focus more on the inner world of the Bengali middle class. It is altogether a new style of investigation by Mrinal Sen. Chalchitra is the best film that reflects this transition from 1970s to 1980s. The film is a very simple story, a simple story because it is the story of a young man, Dipu, Bengali young man, middle class Bengali young man, Dipu, who is who works in an office, a little job, but his ambition is to become a journalist, a successful writer. And one day he meets his friend's father, who is a newspaper editor, famous newspaper editor in Calcutta. And Utpal Datta acted out by the editor's role is acted out by Utpal Datta, played by Utpal Datta. The editor tells him that just you go and look around and pick up a story from the everyday life of us, and the life which you observe around you. So pick up the story and pick up the event and make a story and write a feature in the newspaper. Now Dipu comes back to home and trying to observe the reality around him. He lives in a house which is a big multi quarter house where many other families live, and there are common terrace, there are common kind of place for washing, all these things. So Dipu is trying to observe first. Then he tries to provoke the people to do something which looks more catchy. And this thing is happening, but in a very playful mode. The point is why I love this film and why I actually is giving emphasis on this particular film, Chalchitra, is that because early 1980s was not a good time for a filmmaker like Mrinal Sen, who was a committed kind of revolutionary filmmaker. Because his contemporaries in culture, in literature, in politics, most of them were already very disappointed. Many of them became cynical. But I love Chalchitra Mrinal Sen's this film, that though Mrinal Sen acknowledges the failure of the revolutionary 1970s, but still, when he's trying to address that middle class reality, there is no cynicism in him. That is very interesting in this film. That there is no sign of cynicism. And Mrinal Sen in 1981 he was not a young filmmaker. He was no more a young filmmaker. Already he earned enough fame, and he became a kind of veteran filmmaker. But still, he started looking at the reality anew, afresh. That makes the film very interesting for us, for me. And his curiosity to explore that middle class world, which he did not in his earlier films. So we find that we live in that big house, multi-quarter house. There are many flats, and there is a common terrace, common washing place. They share many common part of the house. They fight each other on various little issues. They cooperate each other at the time of crisis, and it's a very colorful world which Mrinal Sen actually portrayed. We know that our middle class daily life is not a very colorful world in that sense. Every theoretician, starting from social theorist, starting from Karl Marx to Michel Lisartu, everybody told that middle class world is a very eventless kind of world. It's not a colorful in that sense. But Mrinal Sen portrayed this world in a very colorful way. That is very interesting thing. And point is that Mrinal Sen still, when he started his filmmaking journey in 1950s, and now after 30 years, still he believes in certain kind of Marxist values. Because why? Because if we watch the film carefully, what we find that the film moves from individual to collective, and then once again comes back from collective to individual. And this thing actually, this to and fro journey actually creates a dialectics between individual and collective in his film. If we watch the film, we find that the common terrace, everybody first, someone starts, and then everybody joins her. When one fellow woman who needs to be hospitalized, everybody forgets the petty kind of hostility and all these things, and they join hand, and finally they celebrate when a new baby is born by the woman. So these things, that from individual to collective, but everybody has their reservation, everybody has their bias, like middle class bias, middle class pettiness, middle class, all these things, that self-centeredness. But still, there is a journey from individual to collective, and from collective once again back to the household and individual. That is very interesting in Mrinal Sen. Another point which I have noted in this film, that is another reason I love this film, because of the film has a kind of ethnographic interest. That if we just divide the film shot by shot, you find there are hundreds of human faces, there are hundreds of human figures, there are hundreds of behavioral patterns, and everybody of them, they have their own story. That is very interesting in this film. This ethnographic interest is another very important point in Mrinal Sen, which he developed, I think, from late 1960s, and there is a history of development of this ethnographic interest. Uh, 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 in 1969, that Louis Malle, famous French filmmaker, he came to India to shoot a documentary film, and he shot his films in Kolkata. And he was assisted by Mrinal Sen and advised. Mrinal Sen was his advisor and assisted him, in Louis Malle's Kolkata part actually. Louis Malle took many of Mrinal Sen's suggestions, and on the contrary, this Louis Malle's interest in capturing human faces of Kolkata, Louis Malle's interest in capturing the streets and the political rallies of Kolkata, Louis Malle's interest in trying to find a story from an ordinary person, common man, that actually Mrinal Sen picked up from Louis Malle. And Louis Malle, that later Louis Malle became a lifelong friend of Mrinal Sen. Mrinal Sen's film, when it is shown in Cinémathèque Française, that famous archive established by Henri Langlois. So Mrinal Sen's Baise Shravan was shown there, and the subtitle for one reel, there is no subtitle. No subtitle, and Henri Langlois, who translated that, no French subtitle, I mean. So Henri Langlois translated it from English to French, live. It was a live translation, kind of thing. Anyway, sorry, Henri Langlois. I'm sorry, Louis Malle translated it. So Louis Malle became Mrinal Sen's lifelong friend, and Mrinal Sen's this interest in ethnographic filmmaking. If we just consult the history of cinema verite in France, that Jean Rousseau's style of what Jean Rousseau introduced in documentary filmmaking, a very interesting point that a documentary filmmaker's task is not limited in recording the actuality, but a documentary filmmaker's camera must provoke actuality. So the camera's role must be provocative, and verite never claims that what the camera records, a documentary filmmaker's camera records, is actuality in absolute sense. No, that verite says that camera should provoke a person, camera should provoke a reality. That how the camera provokes the reality and extracts out some information, some subjective opinion of the characters, and how the new interpretations of reality we observed in the famous Jean Rousseau film, Chronicle of a Summer, 1960. So Mrinal Sen always was very connected with global filmmaking styles, and he was very open, since he himself changed his styles several times according to his reality provoked him. He was very, very open to the global film movement. So this ethnographic exploration is very interesting in CHALCHITRA. You find in the film that a fortune teller, palm reader, whose life is Dipu is trying to follow him, and Dipu is introduced with him. Dipu goes to his place, which is in a basti, in a slum in Kolkata, and trying to find why he has taken this kind of occupation, his poverty, his helplessness, all these things, and that the character is portrayed like a ethnographic filmmaker, like it is more like a ethnographic filmmaker style that the character is portrayed. So this is not new once again in Chalchitra. The similar kind of ethnographic interest we have observed in Calcutta 71, Mrinal Sen's that film. There is a train sequence, local train sequence. If you go back to that film, if you ever go back to that film, Kolkata Ekattor, and find the train, a local train sequence, it's a fantastic sequence. It looks like a documentary filmmaking. It looks like that the that the people who are traveling are documented as in a fiction film. Similar is Interview's tram sequence, his Calcutta Trilogy's second film, Interview, that's tram sequence of that film. And all these things that this ethnographic interest is more successfully fulfilled by Mrinal Sen in Chalchitra, because Chalchitra is a film which is destined to record this, which is actually meant to record this ethnographic reality, because the protagonist Tipu's mission is to write a feature on everyday reality of middle class world, right? So there is a dream sequence in Chalchitra. We find that a dream sequence that many women, they are from young women to old ladies, they, in a dream sequence, it's Dipu's dream, that with their oven, that coal oven, actually old style coal oven, with the oven, they're carrying the oven with them. They assemble in a place, in a fictitious place rather, it's a dream, and huge smoke is coming from thousands of ovens the women are carrying, and you know that the a threatened person called the police. Police came. They called the fire brigade, and the police was very they became very anxious. Everybody became very anxious. There is a tense situation between the police and the women who are carrying the coal ovens, and you know the smoke all around the city sky. Now, the point is, first of all, the smoke. That if we just browse a quick history of smoke in Kolkata, it becomes a very interesting story. Mrinal Sen started his journey in Kolkata. He came from a village of then East Bengal, eastern part of Bengal, now Bangladesh. He came to Calcutta in 1970s and got admitted in Presidency College in physics honors. But that time, just imagine Kolkata of that time. Mrinal Sen, when he arrived at Kolkata, and everybody was it was a different city, because every evening was blackout, evening of blackout, fearing Japanese bombardment and Japanese bomb. The Second World War. There are the newspapers pages every day in newspaper pages. There were photographs of bombardment, smoke, and you know, destruction. The whole city is bombarded. The smoke was something Mrinal Sen's political career started. Secondly, Mrinal Sen saw this smoke once again, that he was a close associate of Indian People's Theatre Association, IPTA, in 1940s, and throughout his life, though he never took any Communist Party's membership, his close friends were Communist Party members or Communist Party sympathizers, and many times he participated as a filmmaker, as an observer in the rallies in the streets, and he had the experience of that police throwing tear gas and smoke bomb uh, to disperse the people. Hmm. And so the smoke was a very important part of his own life, which very closely maintained association with politics, Kolkata street politics. And finally, 1971, that is the Naxalites, the main weapon was bombed. So the cheap and main weapon was bombed, and smoke was there in Kolkata everywhere. You can metaphorically say that the smoke, and you can, in reality, the smoke was there. So there was a history of whole history of political history of smoke in Kolkata, and that when the women came out and assembled in array and with that coal oven, which emits smoke and which fills the sky of the city, and the upper middle class, the rich people, they get threatened. That smoke has a kind of that is a very household thing as it is coming out from a household oven, coal oven. But this household thing, a very insignificant household thing, in Mridal Sen's film actually takes a leaf, and it became a political symbol. It's fantastic. It's the way the way a household thing is made political. It is Mridal Sen. Only Mridal Sen can do it. That transformation can make this transformation. And who are the instrumental in this transformation? The women, particularly the women who are not, most of them are they are homemakers. They are not they do not do work or like that. There are 2 or 3 young women who do work, who work in office, and they are economically independent. But most of the women is from the age of Dipu's mother, that age, and most of them are homemakers. But they came out with their oven, which emits smoke, and when the police throws smoke bomb and tear gas to them, we find in soundtrack there is a huge sound of laughter. They're just mocking at police, laughing at police, literally laughing at police, because they say that the whole life we tolerate this. We have to live in this atmosphere in the kitchen. And now you are throwing towards us the smoke bomb and tear gas to disperse us. So we are in this situation. We the whole throughout our life in the kitchen, we are exploited in that way. The tear gas, smoke bomb can't be effective here. So this kind of thing, once again, that Mridal Sen had a different kind of interest, which we observe from Padatik, that the role of women in communist movement, Naxalite movement, and other communist movements. Mridal Sen, if you watch Padatik carefully and observe carefully Simi Garwal's character, and that she raises the question. She is a communist sympathizer, and she has a flat at a posh area of Kolkata, and a runaway revolutionary takes shelter in her flat. And you know that the questions comes in the film Padati. And finally it takes the shape that Simi Garwal, she is taking a interview, she is making an interview among women, that the role of women in labor movement, communist movement, all these things. Once again, a reference to ethnographic document. But Mrinal Sen had an interest in it, that how how the political movements, they acknowledge the role of women. Is there any gap? We know that there is a gap, that now the most of the communist parties, they come to that realization that they never there was never very careful and respectful to women's contribution in communist movements. But Mrinal Sen was very much conscious about that from 1970s. Padatik is a best example of that. Now, here, you know that 1981, all revolutions ended in 1970s. Either the revolutionaries are killed by police, or the revolutionaries are thrown in the jail, and finally, once again, some of them, they came back. But the movement is completely gone, completely vanished in thin air. It's a tragic end of the movement. But the question still exists, right? The role and acknowledgement of women in communist movement. That is a very interesting question. In this film, this dream sequence where thousands of women, when the Dipu and their friends and that generation, and the male members of the society, they completely submitted, they completely surrendered. They have nothing new to do, nothing new to say. That the women with woven, they actually this collective their collective effort looks like a moment which we can say a missing moment of revolution. History missed them. Actually, these women, the contribution of women, that history missed them. That by non-acknowledging their role, that history actually missed them. It could have been there, but never happened in reality. Never they were acknowledged in reality. A very interesting kind of moment in Mrinal Sen creates. That is why Mrinal Sen often says that enemy is within us, within me. The enemy within is interested him in 1980s and 1990s. That one example is that such an example. So this is my brief kind of explanation of this film, what I have understood from this film.
Yeah, thank you very much, Manas, for this very wonderful introduction to the film, and especially your analysis of the smoke, because although it was cinematically brilliant, the images of smoke, I could not get the significance of it. And therefore, for me, at least, it was very interesting the way you analyzed the smoke image and related it to the socio-political ethos of the city of Calcutta. And of course, Calcutta becomes almost like a character in the film, something like his trilogy, Interview and Calcutta 71. And so, and also from the point of view of the films that are discussed in TFO, what I found very interesting, and I'm sure those of us who come regularly for the sessions, it would have struck them as well, that the past few films that have been discussed focus on journalism. Journalists are characters in the film. Just last week, we discussed Jagmohan Mundra's Kamla, which was so much about the ethics of journalism. A couple of weeks ago, we had discussed Jaane Bhi Do Yaro, which is also a very city-centric film like this film. In that case, in Jaane Bhi Do Yaro's case, of course, it was the city of Bombay. Here it is Calcutta. So these are, some of the continuities that I found in the films that we have watched and discussed. And apart from this, I think let me open it out for discussion. Anyone would like to step in first? Monarch, would you like to? She was telling us before the meet started that she has a lot to say about the film. Yes, please go ahead, Monarch.
So first of all, I'll just take out the very striking things when I was watching the movie. So the experience of the women coming together and cleaning up the courtyard, and even before that, when the mother kind of slipped away, and the conversation happening between the women in the movie, it was so refreshing, and I was almost shocked that this movie is in 90s. I have never seen such empathetic, such nuanced and real kind of striving of women together. Apart from that, one thing which struck me twice in the movie was the book, which was named The Possible Dream. And when I searched up this book, it is about the 10 people who kind of climb the social ladder. I mean, I might be putting it in a wild way, but they kind of work their way to the up. So I just tried to fit in the meaning and even the title, The Possible Dream. So maybe we can have discussion about that. But uh, when when ma'am was talking about that it talks about journalism, and even the way our character is trying to find his story and going from one place to other, even asking his mom for interviews and playfully kind of exploiting every experience or situation that he can to get to his stories. I found this very simple, but it captures what I want to convey, that everything that has utility or even aesthetic significance has a price tag attached. And maybe in such a world, our tales and emotions and feelings become products to sell as well. Uh, because when he was talking with the media person in the very first time between their meeting, the even the exchange of their words, he asked that would you write a story about this, and he was like, okay, yes, do you like this job? And although our protagonist wants this job and is happy to write, he's somewhere not utterly convinced of what comes his way or what kind of stories people like. And even at the very end, when he talks about that how many gas ovens, uh, the person asks bluntly, are you a communist? So Mrinal Sen's way of capturing these nuances as something even sir mentioned, that it 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 doesn't get preachy. It's very playful, and it almost also like mocks, and but doesn't make you feel bad, or doesn't make you feel guilty. It makes you question a lot of things, but in a very empathetic way, in a way that it kind of knows you. So I was watching this debate on post-structuralism. So Professor Spivak says that there is no system but an old system. So that also makes me question in the movie that is the movie also does the movie also talk about striving in capitalism, and from striving in capitalism to almost sustaining in capitalism, and kind of finding his foothold, because at the very end of the movie he's also able to buy guest stuff for his family. So um and we often say that the working class people, they are constantly struggling, but if we get a chance to make better of our life, even while noticing the differences, even while noticing the pain, like even the scene where that lady robs the coal. So it makes us question a lot of things, that um, is it that I mean, Mrinal Sen is amazing, so I'm just kind of jumping from one thing to other. Um, and, and another thing is, in the context of, if we get a chance, would we not turn on the ACs in such a heat, while living in the same lane where a lot of people do not have AC, or even cannot afford turning on fans? So how do we fight with the system while constantly trying to sustain in it, and take advantage of it? So I think that book was also symbolic of it. um, um, and Professor Spivak also says that truth is just a matter of validation. So even when he tries to find his story, when the truth is not validated by his own heart, like how he was when he went to the palm reader's home, and when he looked out of all of things, it was out of a selfish reason that he backed out. So is it just a matter of validation? And apart from all of this beautiful imagery and discussions and interpretations, one scene which struck me was the one in the very start, where he goes to this men's home, and he has this amazing kind of ducked up clothes, almost elegant and classy, which kind of makes us think that he belongs to a certain kind of class. And one after the other, how he's stripped down, and how we are immersed in the movie when we see one after the other part of his home. And um, it's very playful, as he mentioned, that when the narrator, like the protagonist, says that, oh, is he going to remove his boxer as well? No, thank God he didn't. He covered it up with a towel. So are we all like that, even our reality is juggled up like that? We somehow find happiness in it, and at the very end, when it's really time to to be naked, as in to be in our most real surreal form, when the reality is about to shred, and we just cover it up with a thin old layer of what we call as in a system, and that is how it works. Even when his mom says that, no, we don't open up the window, just let it be. And it focuses from individual to community, community to individual, and kind of skins and off. So that was a very great insight. It makes much more sense like that. So yes, I would go on for days, but yes, I'll let other people talk. It was a beautiful movie.
Thank you so much, Monarch, for your detailed responses. Manas, would you like to respond to her or take more questions or comments?
No, let me discuss his point.
Sure, sure. Please go ahead.
First of all, very interesting. Another interesting point is that the man whose home actually he visited at that night when he didn't have any public traffic or that man never comes back again in the narrative. He disappears at the first sequence. He disappears. So this kind of technique Muralson often uses that an event is told only to communicate certain ideas, certain discursive or polemical kind of debates, and then the character or this thing disappear. But another thing is that if you watch the last film, last shot, what is the ultimate last shot of the film? First of all, the film is the central character of the film, and maybe Deepu is the protagonist, but the show is completely hijacked by Deepu's mother, Geeta Sen. So she is a fantastic actor. In Kandahar, if you watch Kandahar, if you watch her other films, she's a fantastic actor, fantastic. Without her contribution, Chalchitra would have been a very simple kind of failed exercise. But the ultimate last shot is that from the top of the roof, Deepu and his little brother is watching out and just looking around, and from the nearby slum, but once again we find that the smoke. It's a morning, and everybody has the everybody in hurry to prepare some food before they go to work, and that hundreds of smoke is spiraling from every little house, every little house of the hut. That is the end of the film. Is not that Deepu's buying a gas, but the city which Mrinal Sen loves is a city where the still the from the coal oven the gas the smoke comes out. Another important point which you can observe in this film that is the with a kind of dialectics between witness and representation. But you find that Deepu's failure to represent, Deepu witnesses several things, but Deepu fails to represent. That is the fortune teller story. Once again, is not. I think that it is not that he denied to write about it, but Mrinal Sen plays with this that whatever we witness, we cannot represent. So there is a gap between witness and representation. Some kind of mediation is required, which transforms what we witness the reality and what we represent in an aesthetic form. This actually is doing a very interesting role, playing a very interesting role in the film. And that courtyard cleaning sequence, that Deepu, when Deepu goes and calls a cameraman friend Subhasda, but before Subhasda reaches and clicks his camera, the event actually ends. So once again, the fail to represent. the representation failed to represent. So failure to represent is Mrinal Sen's, you can say that central kind of the theme in this film. And the Dipu, once again, that Dipu gets a good job, good salary, and he buys a gas stove for his mother. But he, when he looks from his rooftop, once again the rooftop, uh, the top, from the top he looks at the bottom. Like that, this is the first time in the not the first time in the film, but Dipu several times. What you find, Dipu actually looks from the top to the bottom, right? From the top. So that is once again he fails to represent what you witness is he fails to represent because his look is always from top to bottom. He cannot come to the same plane. The reality, the people which he aspires to represent, he fails to come that same plane. That is once again a political filmmaker's message. Mrinal Sen as a political filmmaker. Anybody could be frustrated and cynical after 1970s setback, but Mrinal Sen was not. He started his journey once again in 1980s and trying to address his points in a slightly lighter mode, in a playful mode. So that point is I find this one this very interesting in this film, that the direction of look of Deepu. And thank you, Monarch, for a nice observation.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come in now? Yes, Nikhila, please go ahead.
Manas, thanks so much, first of all, for suggesting this film. I mean, it was simply out of my horizon. I had not noticed it. Also, not noticed that it is so easily accessible on YouTube. So thank you so much for drawing our attention to this film and for this wonderfully expansive overview and discussion of the film, the first one, and now again, sharing your insights. Obviously, it's a film that you have probably lived with for a long time. So many of the things that I had not thought about, they're wonderful insights that you're giving us. There were 2-3 things that I was thinking of. One is, when you were talking about this issue of representation, I was just thinking of what he's visualizing and the tense of what is getting visualized and what is getting verbalized. So in that first instance, when we actually see the voiceover, the narrative voiceover, I think he's reading out the story to Utpal Dutt, or Utpal Dutt is reading the story. So it's a verbal voiceover. And then we have this visual, which is more like a kind of something that has happened in past, but it is unfolding before our eyes in the present. Because at some point, Utpal Dutt asks him, so did this really happen? And then he says, yes, whether it really happened or not, it is the past tense that is unfolding before our eyes in the present, as it were. So I found that very interesting. And then the rest of the tense of the film is obviously the representation, visual representation is present tense for a hopefully, futuristic write-up, which never materializes, as we see. So I thought that was, extremely interesting how he's pushing us to think, okay, here is a potential for a ride. Something may happen, and then it never really materializes. And then that last dystopian, but also somewhat comical, and also dystopian kind of dream sequence, which you can kind of see as a futuristic visualization. I'm also thinking of the issue of smoke and smog and environmental concerns and things like that are very contemporary now, and there are so many dystopian films that talk about what the earth might be a few years from now. So that was kind of reminiscent of that. So I was just thinking of the play with temporality in the film, the way in which the film moves between an event in the past, representing it now, an event that is actually a non-event, as it turns out. But we think, okay, here is the build-up, and he's trying to also become like a catalyst to make something happen, and nothing really happens. So I thought all that was very, very fascinating. Another very fascinating aspect is what he considers as the marker of middle classness. And one of them I found the Satya Sai Baba thing that keeps coming up. I mean, it's almost like it's flashing constantly. Maybe, I don't know what it's supposed to indicate. Is it middle classness, or I don't know if in the 80s context he stood for something more than that. Is it a certain kind of irrationality of the bourgeoisie? I'm not sure what exactly, but I found it very hilarious that you're kind of zooming in and zooming out of this picture. The third aspect was, of course, as Geeta said, Calcutta is also almost like a character in the film, very differently from the Calcutta trilogy, I would think. And the way in which, for instance, in that taxi hunting sequence, I don't know if it was, if it's the editing, or is it the camera which is kind of, giving us a sense of as almost as if it's a handheld camera. 80s is not that, I don't know if 80s is the time for handheld camera or whatever, but it was a very different way of capturing the city, the kind of the perspective of the city. And I was also wondering whose perspective is it? Tipu's? Yeah, so I was just thinking about some of these questions, but it's certainly a film that I would like to take to my class as well. So thanks very much for introducing this film on TFO, Manas. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhila. Manas, would you like to respond? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nikhila. Particularly the temporality point is you observed is very good, very interesting, and this is true that the temporality and the timeline, how where the characters or protagonists or the narrator particularly he tries to locate the narrator in a very interesting timeline always. If we just refer back to Calcutta 71, the narrator is a 20 years old young man who says that I am walking along the path of history for 1000 years. I am 20, but I am walking down the path of history track of burning track of history for one long 1000 years, and I have seen this thing. I have seen this time, and then the present in the present tense, the film comes in the present tense, and it's true. You are absolutely true that where is the past, what is the present, and the futurist uh, futuristic idea in his films are always there. Even the dystopia sometimes, like the dystopia of the film like Lajetri. That kind of dystopia he's in his films we find, and a futuristic kind of dystopia. But middle classness in his film, mostly we find that in 19 this phase, that 1970s to 80s or 1970s, in 1970s this middle classness he investigated in a more political way, particularly in the film Padatik, the guerrilla warrior, I think the English title of this film. That in that film, that there is a huge, there is a long debate among the different characters, that what is class, how can a middle class integrate with a in a proletarian revolution, who is a vanguard, and the limitation of middle class is always, that only Mrinal indicated, and therefore Mrinal was not very appreciate, not very much people appreciated Mrinal for this kind of technique 1974 in Poland. Slightly later, Mrinal particularly in these films, middle class, in one hand he tries to define middle class by aspirations. Which kind of a middle class aspiration is a kind of typical aspiration, and he tries to kind of define it. One. Another is a moral position, that morality and moral position, that acting pratiti, where the young woman, she doesn't come to home for that night, and that moral position. In that moral position, he explores it, that how the people react, how the people their anxiety is, the parents' anxiety is definitely the safety of the young lady, but the other people, the other middle class people, their anxiety is mainly the moral anxiety, which is imposed on the young lady, Srila Mukherjee. So Srila Majumdar, played by the role is played by. So that is another point that Mrinal Sen tries to explore and try to define middle classness in that way, in that moral position. And in late 80s film, Mahaprithvi particularly, what you find that Mahaprithvi, the mother who lost her younger son in 1970s revolution, he became martyred, her son. And after the news comes that Soviet failed, Soviet Union failed, and communism is going to be erased out completely from the history. That anxiety, that disappointment she could not bear. She committed suicide. So that is another level, that the dystopic end of middle class. Another anxiety, maybe his own anxiety, that where the middle class will stand, what will be the shape of middle class, or is it, if it is end of history, then not only it is the end of proletarian class, but it is also the end of middle class too. That is another kind of take of production. And I am not living with the film. Actually, I am trying to find, I'm trying to write this particular point that middle class little magazine editor, my friend, asked me to write. And I was trying to find how do we show the transition from 70s to 80s, and that just a couple of weeks ago, I discovered the film. I mean that good copy of the film. There was a bad copy in the YouTube, but I'm fascinated to see that film in a good copy, and it's a nice experience for me. And the last point you mentioned is really a very important part of this film. That when he is hunting for a taxi, trying to find a taxi, that whose perspective it is, and it is edited. This is zip pan. There are some zip pan, and kind of credit must go to KK Mohajan. KK is fascinating in this sequence. Just his camera work is fascinating, and it's a busy street. The traffic is not stopped. Traffic is not stopped, and neither stopped nor controlled. It's a style of Mrinalsen kind of filming. That KK Mohajan, brilliant work of KK. But the perspective and that restlessness in this thing, and that perspective that is created through editing. And the perspective is, it's whose perspective. It is absolutely very interesting, important point. Whose perspective that the city is shown. Yes, I'll think about this point, particularly this sequence. And thank you very much for drawing attention to this the particular question, whose perspective this is.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any more questions, comments?
Can I say something?
Yes, please go ahead.
I mean, I think it is a wonderful experience for me, because for the first time I'm attending this. And yes, I would just like to say a few things, because I'm not a film student, I just love watching film off and on, not in a very methodically. And thank you, Professor Manas. You have really, I mean, quite a few things which would have gone unnoticed about, particularly your explanation, about the pop. And that young girl, lady, the Monara, I mean, that was wonderful. That is what I wanted to say. If you think you really did it. What I want to say about this film, actually, I have been watching 2-3 films for the last few days, films. I watched those films almost. In those days, I was very much familiar with the Calcutta. I was familiar with 1980s, 70s and all. So it came to me, I used to be involved for the reason that because in our mind, we always ready to be involved, because we are ready for the, kind of movement and all. So we are ready to love it, whatever it is, because it is doing for us and all. Now that I am watching it after such a long gap, I've been doing it in a very different perspective, definitely. And what I find, what this gentleman, this Minal said, I mean, he is a fantastic filmmaker, of course, for different reasons. Of course, I mean, he can sing, he has got the passion, and he can just take it forward. And he takes it forward with a bang. His sound, like, whatever, many of the films, the train is moving, the sound, and then the machine, press, about the newspapers coming out and all, the sound. And here the Calcutta, he announced that, look, I'm going to do this. And I don't bother about the finesse and all about where it could have been edited here a little bit. I don't mind. I'll just go. And here, I mean, I find that, okay, here it is. We have great master filmmaker and all, where, I mean, Mr. Ray, He does everything, meticulously about edit and all. Mrinal Sen, knowing his style, I'm sure that if he wanted, he could have done it. But he decided that I'll go this way. Now, talking about this film, Professor Manas, you may agree, when I'm watching it after such a long time, the beginning, the shot, the gentleman he's appearing, from, for the black background. And it's so dramatic. I've never seen in any film that I have watched, this kind of shot. And ultimately, Monarch, you have explained, this thing, and this guy is, ultimately shredding his. Oh, I think that I have never seen like that. And some of the small things, and then, of course, about all the ladies that they started scrubbing and all there, I would say, Mr. Mrinal Sen, he can make moment from any time. He can create a moment. I mean, so easily. And always, the way they were scrubbing and all, things are happening, people are watching, there is a kid, as if it is a kind of concert to me, there's a lot of things happening. And third thing I must mention about the fortune teller, there I find, my money, it may not be so important, but the way I looked at it, they were talking, and this guy is just quietly, sitting behind it. The fortune teller is getting feeling discomfort. What do you want? And what we find, just as a last word of Bhattacharya, and then we can read, not the whole thing. And then, okay, they disappear or whatever. Then he said that I want to make a feature or I write a story on me. And then we find that complete, then his name and all, what is he, whatever Bhattacharya and all, it comes. I mean, I thought that it is maybe that it is not by chance, maybe Mrinal Sen has done it by design. I mean, how it has the whole thing. And when he takes this to his home, he said, why do you do it? Like that it is. And that is so touching, when he said, what to do, the people they are looking for some hope. I can tell them, something hope. Wow, these are the moments that Mr. Mrinal Sen has created. What more? I mean, we watch a film not because of the whole story and all. We come back home, we come back with some moment, which always, living in our mind. And this gentleman, of course, you were talking, Professor Manas, you were talking about the Padati. I saw Padati yesterday. Wow, that is the style. And that they are waiting. There's no one, only two of them. And the flat, they're waiting. We know that they are waiting for the lady who's flat. And then comes, of course, it is the Mrinal Sen as well as the KK Mahajan, the semi behind that, the curtain, that color, kind of, if you see, there's a design curtain, and this lady that is the Simi Garwal is standing on. It just takes you. So I just thought, Mr. Manas, you may tell me, my question is, not question, I'm just curiosity. His sound, all the films, even from Ruban Shom and all I'm seeing, train coming and this, all the press and all, whatever, machine. He is, why he is about the sound, so I was intrigued. Then I found naturally that he was a medical representative, but most importantly, he was also a sound technician. I was just thinking maybe that, okay, it is something that to do with that his attention to the sound, and if it is attention to the sound, and about the Mr. KK Mahajan montage, it's all the shots, different shots. I find it is so much linked with the planning that is in the script. So sound and what the shots will be like. Of course, Mr. Mahajan, he is so, I would say, it's fortunate that to get someone, another artist, that okay, this is my view, this is my dream. Can you take it forward? And I'm sure that I don't know the name of the editor, but I'm sure the three of them, before they go, they just sit together. That is how I look all these 2, 3, 4 films. They're all combined. So yeah, that is it. And Gita, I thank you for accepting me in this group, and it's a great experience. And I don't know what I just thought. Because I'm not a student of film, though I made only one film, but that's it. But I love it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any response from Manas or?
Yes. First of all, thank you, sir. It's absolutely true that it's only possible for Mrinal Sen to make a film out of nothing. But I mean, out of anything, any object, any person, any event, any particular feature of the city Kolkata, everything, anything he can. There is a story. I don't know if the story is perfectly true or not, unverified sort of. That Mrinal Sen, you know that Bhuvansham is a very small budget film. It's an exemplary small budget film because it is a film which started the New Indian cinema movement, and Mrinal Sen and Arun Kaul's manifesto, and their objective is to make small budget films. So the script was submitted for Film Financing Corporation and government officer. Actually, he had a huge doubt on the script, that not the script but the budget. The script and the budget. Budget is too small, and the script is, there is location, outdoor, everything. So he was hesitant to pass the file, and the file finally reached to sent back to Delhi Information and Broadcasting Minister. The Information and Broadcasting Minister of that time, I am not taking the name because you know, the Information and Broadcasting Minister told called the IAS and told him that do you know who submitted the file proposal? His name is Mrinal Sen. Mrinalda can do anything out of any budget, and he has the power and capacity to make any film out of any space, any time, any budget. So do your job and pass. So this is the way move on from was like. And one point, sir, it is very interesting, and Mrinal Sen's sound is very under-researched area. And you know, the sound and image relationship in Mrinal Sen's film, what you were mentioning, some points that came in my mind, but I am not also very clear. And there is a very less kind of number of literature on this particular area, that Mrinal Sen sound. Sir, you are silent. Sir, unmute.
You have
Yeah. No, one thing, Professor Manas, I found that whenever I read some reviews and all people doing, everything they talk about the line, they talk about the story and all, but unfortunately I found that they don't talk about the sound so much, and about the sound mixing and all. Why I'm saying, sorry, with my very small experience, the film that I made with the other fun clothes, and we had to do the sound mixing in.
Sir, please unmute.
You're muted again.
Sorry. Yeah. So what I found, the mixing of sound and all, so much important in other cities, like, when I was doing for our film in Paris, and so much budget went there. And here we find that sound mixing is, no, they don't talk about. Even there I found in the poster, they find, who is the director, who is this, that, and there would be a name at the sound mixer or sound mixing, whatever the name technical term. It is so important.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other comments? Ajanta, would you like to say something? Okay, Raj. Yeah, please go ahead, Raj.
Yeah, I like the way that the protagonist Deepu is looking at everybody and as if he's watching and observing and that's it. And of course, a kind of a comment on the film and on smoke is when the two men who are very prominent are smoking, right? And that's not even a problem. But they have this illusion of smoke, and they're talking about it so much when it involves women and the work of women. But them smoking is not a problem, and it's got nothing to do with pollution. So that's a kind of comment that they're making on the film also, right? And then about that sound business, you have a cat sound in the beginning of the film, and you don't see the cat, but there's one shot which has a cat in it, right?
Yeah, thank you, Rajan. Yes, Shubhranshu.
One small
Shubhranshu.
question. Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So all my favorite scenes were already discussed. I just have one question, sir. When you said the name of the filmmaker Louis Mark, and after that you said another name. So can you please repeat the name that you said?
Oh, that name is Henri Langlois. I mean, the spelling starts with Henry, and Langlois is simple. Henri Langlois was the director of Cinémathèque Française in 1960s. So he's a big name. He's a very important name. 1950s, actually 50s, 60s. Because Henri Langlois was one of the mentors of new wave filmmakers. That when they were just critique, they was writing in magazines and Cahiers du Cinema like magazines, Truffaut, Godard, Rivet, Chris Marker. That Henri Langlois actually gave them scope to watch world cinema. And Henri Langlois became one of the mentors of them. So this name Henri Langlois. And Henri Langlois is a friend of Louis Malle and Mrinal Sen also. Langlois had a very good relationship with Mrinal Sen.
Ajanta has a comment in the chat box. She says, thank you for the wonderful intro to the film, Professor Manas. It was an entirely new Mrinal Sen to me too, watching this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Jayanto, I think you had unmuted some time ago. Would you like to say something, Jayanto?
He's not.
He's not? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
he's not here. Okay. Tarkeshwar, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I think the discussion is quite interesting. Of course, assessing Mrinal Sen and seeing this film as a way to reassert the craftsmanship of Mrinal Sen is fine. And also looking at the placing this film in the aura of Mrinal Sen is also fine. But I think the interesting thing was about the discussion on middle class. I think there's some tension in the way we are discussing it. I think the tension is also there in the subtitle. I don't know Bengali, but still I found that the dialogue refers to Badrulok, and then we are translating it as middle class. Can they be equated, or is it possible to see them as two different things? That is another thing. And the word middle class in our discussion also, we were using to refer to two different and disparate groups. One is those who keep Sai Baba as a kind of middle class, are those who are living in this, what in Bombay Marathi we call chal, as middle class or working class. So this the class business we were using very loosely, I think, but that is important because the film is making a comment on it, the values of Bhadralok. So there is an aspect to become a Bhadralok, and those who from the outside uh, visibly come through as Bhadralok. So Bhadralok as an economic status and Bhadralok as a set of values. So when he tries to provoke his mother, Dipu, she says, how can I do it now in the middle of the night? And when she throws uh, the piece of paper on the chal, they console themselves. Fine, we gave smoke and they gave paper to us. So some kind of adjustment and then respecting each other's spaces is something that is found in the chal. I think that is the crux of the uh, film, I thought. So those who want to be seen as Bhadralok in terms of the values, and those who want to see themselves as Bhadralok in terms of the economic status and then the appearance. And then how appearance is uh, deceiving is come through in the first sequence itself, when that fellow uh, disrobes himself. So that is it sets the tone for the entire narrative in that sense. So uh, so in that sense, I think we need to look at the concept of Bhadralok. And then the other thing that I thought is very interesting, though it comes as a kind of exposing the so-called Bhadralok, talking about pollution, and then the women struggling with it. So they're juxtaposed uh, each other to expose the Bhadralok thing. But more than that, it is also the question of modernity. I don't know whether in the 80s this question had come up, but especially in the 90s, uh, we all, through Foucault and others, became anti-modernity. And we were talking about interrogating modernity and questioning modernity. Uh, but interestingly, here it is juxtaposed. Uh, the the urban scape using the coal oven and then producing smoke, and then the people who are talking about it as pollution. So the contrast is between a certain kind of modernity fashioned by the larger public and a certain kind of modernity that was fashioned by the quote unquote Bhadralok. I think that was the contrast that comes through here. So it was also a debate on modernity, and but I think somewhere the narrative ends up by giving a gas connection to the uh, at least to the mother. But that apart, but it clearly juxtaposes the debate about modernity and environmental issues, where already those who are already modern are trying to use it, use issues like environment uh, to prevent others becoming Bhadralok. I think that was the uh, thing that I could get through the narrative. Though the narrative, in narrative, as I said earlier, it comes as a kind of juxtaposition of um, the Bhadralok, as even Rajan said, they are smoking. They are not bothered about the pollution caused by the smoking, but they are bothered about the uh, women who are using the coal. So that was the kind of thing, but it has larger implications for the debate on modernity that came in the late 80s and early 90s. Maybe I'm reading it now into the film, maybe it doesn't exist, but that's how the narrative appears to me. Uh, I think it's better to use the word Bhadralok and then analyze it rather than simply using it the middle class. So I think there is a tension between the concept of Bhadralok and then the concept of middle class. Thank you. Thank you for the film and the discussion.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar. Any responses to these points? Yes, Manas.
Thank you for pointing out this, that the difference between Bhadralok and middle class. It's an once again an issue of translation. First of all, that Bhadralok in Bengali is translated into English as middle class. But courtesy subaltern studies historians and thinkers, cultural thinkers, historical thinkers, that Bhadralok has become a historical category, and you know that it became a cultural and historical category in history now. Thanks for noting it and making us aware about this. But the last shot of the film, the narrative does not end with gas connection. Narrative ends with Dipu and his brother watching at the city, and from a nearby slum, from gas, smoke is produced from hundreds of coal ovens.
Yes.
And the question of this, that gas oven and coal oven is that first of all, this is a point of comfort here. Middle class is, or Bhadralok is a historical cultural category, but middle class is more a category who can achieve some kind of comfortable lifestyle, comfortable life. That comfort is a very important point once again. So that from coal oven to gas oven, that in other cities of India, particularly in Bombay, I think gas oven came much earlier. But in Kolkata, in 1980s, it is not a very kind of general issue. Only the people who can get a good job or like that, they can think about transforming from changing coal oven to gas oven. So it's a point of comfort also. That the comfort is, I think, Mernelson's objective is to point out this comfort, because that middle class, and once again that middle class and Bhadralok, you distinguish between these two, and it is important here also because that the Sai Baba picture we find through the open window or open door of the next apartment, next building, but the people who live there is nouveau riche. I can say that nouveau riche, and that the religiosity among the lower middle class, or on that particular strata, is reflected by the fortune teller, palm reader. The palm reader, there is he noticed that I can speak English, and that is another marker that his middle classness, his morally or somehow he has some kind of education. As he became a Bhattajarji, he has some kind of Sanskrit education maybe, or and in addition to that he can speak English. So I can speak English is a very interesting kind of comment, that also marks a Bhadralokness of him. So one is the knowledge that if we think about the religious icons or religious belief, that one is reflected through this Sai Baba picture, what the Nuvar is, and another is the poor man's religion. One can say that can be lower middle classes, poor man's. I should not say that lower middle classes religion, that can be the palm readers or fortune tellers religion. So you are absolutely correct that the Bhadralok is a category here in Renaissance film, and also historically it is true that there is and its span is huge. So one cannot and one should not identify with a kind of homogeneous definition. Thank you for your comment.
Yeah. Thank you, Manas. Any more comments, questions? Madhurima?
Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
significant. It was an interesting discussion and almost all the points are covered. I just found one thing, that is when Deepu or the person that is Utpal Dutt, I think. So when they are discussing about the issue of environmental pollution or smoke, they are also taking into account this slum population. They are not the middle class actually, but they are actually using them just to focus on their issue. But their voice never really comes in. That is just a minor thing I pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhurima. Any more questions, comments? Okay, if there are no more questions, we will conclude this session. Thank you very much, Professor Manas Ghosh, and all those who have logged in. It has been a wonderful discussion, really stimulating. Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend and see you next Saturday.
Thank you, Manas. Thank you for the discussion.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
See you next week. Good night.
Good night.